Welcome back to WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive, just like my sweatshirt says on here. And those of you know and hear me brag and have heard me brag for the last 2 years about our friends at Strategic Factory, creating your very own masterpiece, and this is my masterpiece. And Keith Miller is here, and his masterpiece is Strategic Factory. He is the president and CEO of a large, big building up in Owings Mills, where I've visited many times, and I've seen your employees. I've been a part of your festivals up there and bringing people together and the kind of work you do. All of us are in this together. You hail from South Africa. You have been a guy who's been through incredible change in your life, and you've told your story on our airwaves, and you've told it out publicly. It's an incredibly inspirational tale. But pandemics, where is this one on the crisis management playbook, Keith, huh?
This isn't even in the playbook, unfortunately, Nestor. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. But yeah, this is something that we, in our wildest dreams, would never have envisioned having to deal with.
Well, a little bit of your playbook and your background and coming from South Africa, just you've given us the long version of this, but you made a life coming over to America looking for a new life and found it literally in doing printing goods in Pikesville and locally, and turned this thing into your dream and Strategic Factory. And I've discussed your dream with you, and I play your ads, and we talk about what you guys do and creating logos and magic and marketing for people. Every business now is in distress and in some sort of crisis management at this point. I think all of us have to dig down. I lost my finger when I was 3 years old. I had a pregnant girlfriend when I was 15. I've seen my wife fight for her life twice. I've had to pick my business up and dust off from AM radio. So I think we've all been through this when you get to be a little bit older. But to your point, there is no playbook for this one, and it's sort of, well, I never thought of that before, right? To a large degree, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're dealing with the health side of it, which is crucial to make sure everyone's healthy and safe. And then you deal with the economic side of it, which is just unimaginable. Our business has dropped off 85% since it started. We've unfortunately had to furlough about 86 people to date.
How many employees do you have, Topside?
We had about 140 when we were going into this.
Okay.
A lot of them are hourly at the moment and are just doing their part to kind of keep us going, working as needed. But as the work dries up, we have no choice but to continue to furlough people. It's a very stressful time for us. Not everyone understands it, but the perspective that we need for everyone to really grasp is that the economic impacts of this are going to be devastating. And if we cannot control them to a manageable level, we will not reopen, which will put 150 people out of jobs. So we're doing everything we can to preserve our cash flow and manage through this crisis. We don't know when it's going to turn around, which is the most frustrating part, is there's just no certainty. We try and be as transparent as we can with our employees and with everyone on our team, but at the moment, it's just all an unknown. When will this end? Will business return to normal? At what pace? At what level? Nobody knows.
Keith Miller is here. He's the president and CEO of our dear friends at Strategic Factory. And you talk about work drying up. And I think the reality of this for many places is saying, I just want to be here so I can be normal again at some point. And in order to do that, I need to stay alive. My employees need to stay alive, and my business needs to stay alive. I've talked to so many people in the last 10 days. And, Keith, sports has been primarily my business. As you know, I've transitioned to Baltimore Positive with your help and many other people's helps and your support, quite frankly, as a sponsor over the last 2 years. That's allowed me to more normally have people driving around or tuning me in or seeing me not talking about sports. But I never thought it was going to be taken away, right? I never thought there'd be no opening day this week and no March Madness this weekend and no lacrosse being played this spring. And, the thoughts that, for the first time today, someone said to me, if we can have a football season. And I thought, whoa, that's a whole different,
Yep.
And I know the NFL is sort of operating in some sort of normal way, which is, I guess, sort of good for us that Jimmy Smith gets re-signed and we get one little piece of something that used to be normal in our lives. But I think all of us have had to look at this and say, how can we get through these 90 days, 60 days, 120 days and come out of this, let's say on the 4th of July, if things can go back to some level of normal, how can we keep our place open? And I don't know that any of us have ever tried to put together that sort of a crisis management, because we're all in growth mode, right? We're all in maintain what we have, and how do we get the next big thing? How can we grow ourselves? We've never had to think, how do we tourniquet ourselves? Or maybe we had to think about that in 8 or 9, but that is not a normal. If we were tourniqueting ourselves every day, we wouldn't have a business, right?
No, but if you look at 8 and 9, yes, there was a downturn in the economy, but you could pivot. There were still things you could do. It didn't impact everybody at the same time. It was painful, but there definitely were recession-proof businesses. The reality is in this, everybody's in this together. Everybody's dealing with it. And there's just, this too shall pass. I think that everyone can grasp that concept. The challenge really is just when. How long is this going to be? I mean, I was talking to a friend, and he's like, he honestly believes that the economic impact is going to be 15 years before we turn around. I read something the other day that the travel industry is losing $500 million a day by not being able to operate. I just don't know how you ever dig an economy out of a hole that big.
Well, this does speak to leadership right now, right? For the country, for the state, for the city. I mean, we've talked about who's going to be the next mayor and whether there's going to be an election on June 2nd. You can hear all the candidates at Baltimore Positive and WNST.net this week as well. But I think that there's a part of this where leadership is being tested. It's being asked to do something it's never done, whether it's you being the leader of your company or me being the leader of my company. We're all being asked to do something that's awkward, that's left-handed. I've spoken so much about my wife. It was 6 years ago last week she was diagnosed with cancer, and I really put myself back there just to the emotion of what it all meant and what she was going to go through physically, and what every person that contracts this virus is going to sit in the hospital and fight for their life. There was all of that, but more than that, there was just the Purell and the masks and what I did not understand about viruses and bacteria and what it meant for my wife's life. And I had to put my head back into 6 years ago last week. I was asked to wear a mask, which I had never done, Purell my hands all day long, not touch, handshake, hug, or be near anyone as I came and left the hospital for a year and a half, literally.
Yeah.
I did that. And I thought about how awkward it was in the early going, and now how all of society is going to be behaving in that way every time they leave the house. Because I have friends in Italy, and I know you do as well.
Sure. No, very stressful situation. The reality is that you are damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. We're in a mode of survival, and we're trying to do the best we can to survive. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like, we will be a glimmer of what we once were, and we're going to have to figure out how to build back up when this is all over. That is really top of mind, but more importantly, and I think more timely, is just how do we set ourselves up for success, which at the moment is literally just survival, just seeing the other side of this, and still being able to open our doors, turn the lights back on, and go back to business, hopefully as normal.
Well, I think when you have 140 employees as you have, the emotional intelligence part of this was, come on, Keith, 2 weeks ago they canceled the Pearl Jam tour, and I was pissed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm not going to go to Pearl Jam? What? They're going to play basketball games? Well, at least they'll play them, and the courts will be empty, and we'll get to watch. I think we were all a little selfish in thinking a couple of weeks ago as to what was important and what then becomes important. And then there's, little Johnny's lacrosse or little Sally's, softball season, or kids coming home from college, or missing graduations, or missing proms, and all of the emotional part of this that all of us are taking on with wives, daughters, sons, parents who might not be listening to us and running out to the store and all of that. There really is an emotional part of this. We really need to take care of each other here. We talk about feeding each other and money and all of that, but take care of each other just in an emotional well-being here.
Without a doubt. And it's just, this is emotionally, physically, and mentally draining for everybody. And I think that the complexity of the situation and the uncertainty just makes it that much more difficult to navigate. Some people are taking it in their stride, and I get it, and they just said, I can't control what I can't control, and others are doing everything they can to try to control it if they have a bigger destiny to control than just their own. And, I look at governments, I look at, the leaders of our nation. That's a pretty big lift for them to deal with at the moment. This is something unprecedented and something that they've got to work to try to find, what is that viable solution as not to cripple the entire country, but also make sure that everybody is healthy and well and taken care of. And they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Not everyone's going to agree with what they're requesting for.
Well, we've all learned about viruses. I mean, your background in Africa and when Ebola happens and when things happen in Africa and you having your feet on the soil in that continent and seeing the changes there and where you came from versus, let's say, what was happening in the Sudan when you were still over there 30 years ago. Thoughts about viruses, and did you have a different association to this being of African descent and knowing things were going on your continent that could have quickly spiraled out of control 30, 40 years ago when you were there?
Yeah, they were, but I was a young kid at the time. I didn't understand any of the economic implications. I definitely understood the health implications, and it was a matter of making sure that you were healthy and kept, your hands clean and didn't touch things and were just conscious of your surroundings. This is just so much more than that, you're going into any store or any place where there are people. There are just no people. It's dispersed. Everyone's, the social space, 6 feet apart, conscious. The shelves are all empty. This is a surreal experience to be living through.
Keith Miller is here. He's the president and CEO of Strategic Factory. We love them. They create masterpieces, and they've created the masterpiece here that I'm wearing, the Baltimore Positive gear, and do all sorts of printing goods. Tell everybody exactly what you are, because I think of you as, well, you're a printer, well, you're a marketing company, well, you do hats, you do cups, you do stuff, and you do signs, and you do paperwork, and you do, banners, and you do all sorts of things there.
We do everything for marketing, branding, communication. Definitely don't want to come across as opportunistic at all at this point in time. We're doing our best to just support our customers, make sure that they get what they need, and we're trying our best to just be there for the community at large and see how we can help. We have been doing a lot of stuff Corona-related for a lot of the organizations that had to close down, the hospitals that are limiting staff. We've been doing signage for.
Sure.
But, few and far between, and just a challenge in this environment.
Well, there is some printing that is essential, right, to some degree.
Without a doubt. We were labeled as an essential business, which unfortunately doesn't dictate that the work will come in, but it does dictate that at least we are viewed as an important part of the remedy to the situation, or at least the education to the situation. And we have been doing a lot of educational posters, signage, direct mail pieces, digital marketing, a lot of just, website notifications. I've never seen our website ticketing system this crazy, with people putting up notifications about their openings, their closings, what they're doing around Corona, the email blasts. And I'm sure everybody's inboxes have just been flooded with that type of messaging.
Well, it's a digital world. We're completely digital now. The whole world's digital all of a sudden, right?
Sure.
Well, Keith, I just want to send some love over to you. I know you're one of the real distressed businesses, as many are. I have many restaurants trying to do curbside. I talked to my friend Greg Nally. He tried to open a drive-through last week in Hunt Valley. He'd always thought about it, and it's, this is a time where if you've ever thought about implementing something or want to try something, we're all going to have a little bit of time on our hands to be somewhat creative at this point. And I know that that's always been your background in trying to solve challenges, and this is the biggest challenge of our lifetime. We're going to get through it together, man. Let's keep the faith, and I'm trying to keep calm and stay local, and I appreciate all that you've done for us here. We're going to continue to do for you, okay?
I appreciate it. And, again, if we can help anybody in any situation, please feel free to reach out.
Strategic Factory and Keith Miller, president and CEO. I wish we were visiting about like opening day and March Madness and Ravens picks and the stuff that we're usually visiting with folks around here about. But we're trying to hold it together and tell some stories, some inspiration, some hope, some local stories, why businesses matter, why people matter. Obviously, we're all in it together. We are WNST.net, keeping calm, staying local, staying Baltimore positive.